Hey, good afternoon and welcome to Mark and Mark at the Midday. Today we have special guests. We have Tim Worrell, a gentleman who spent 14 years in the bigs, pitched for 9 teams, anchored a lot of great bullpens, had some great postseason experiences. It's time to welcome you to the show and also welcome my buddy and partner in crime, Mr. Country himself.
Yeah, it's good times because I have somebody on the line here, Tim Worrell, that experienced me because I had him his first year as a coach, and I think Tim was out of Loyola Marymount, and he just came right into South Carolina in Charleston and said, "I have arrived," and what's pro ball all about, and it was fun to have Tim, I know, and he's got a lot to tell us because he's pitched. Like you said, he's been in the big leagues 14 years, and you especially 9 teams, you see a lot of stuff happen. I know one thing he was trying to explain to me one time about the teams that he'd been with and the exchanges, and I said that could go on forever, of course. And I'm really lucky to have his son, Austin, who's going to pitch for me. He goes to Missouri Baptist. Tim's from Phoenix, and so I bump into Tim about every 8 months or a year or whatever, and we talk and whatever. But I'm going to have Austin on the my collegiate team, Team Nutty Buddy, and we start June 14th in that league. And I'm very happy to have Tim and Austin as well on my team. Hey Tim, what was the first thing I want to ask you, because you know this? When you went into minor league ball the first time and you had me as a coach, you said I taught you 1 or 2 things, and then you suffered a little bit on one of them, I think, because you didn't break somewhere. So
yeah.
What's that all about?
Well, first off, I mean, that whole, you don't know any different when you're doing it. You just kind of do it. But, I packed my bag from Southern Cal, and they sent me straight to you. I mean, I walked in that locker room knowing nobody, which was interesting. I mean, there's always a group of guys that are going to be friendly and, and ease the transition out. I actually spent the night in the guy's room who they released. I was basically taking his spot. I can't remember his name, but they released him. He invites me to his house. He's basically packing his bag and going home. I end up taking over his room with Rob McCurnow. I don't know if you remember him or not, the catcher. And just kind of like a weird 48 hours. But that whole just transition, into pro ball. And from the amateur side, college, a little, well, a lot bit different. But I think the biggest thing was just that transition into pro ball that you helped me with. But I know the funny little thing you're referring to was one day, one game, I don't know, I was probably 3 starts in, and I think I forgot to cover first base at least twice that game, if not 3 times. And it was one of those things where, you see the ball hit, and I'm sitting there, all of a sudden I'm a spectator and not playing, and then I'm late to first, guys are safe. So the next day Mark had me show up early, which was a night game in Charleston, South Carolina. So showing up early was probably 2, middle of the humidity and everything. Right. And I covered first base by myself for about 30 minutes. I had to simulate throwing, sprint to first, jog back, and by the time I put my foot on the rubber, he had another ball coming my way. So I'll just say this. I never forgot to cover first the rest of my career. So it paid off.
Attaboy, Tim.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I decided to stop being a spectator and play the game at that point.
The funny thing too was I ended up calling that little drill maid of honor, because if somebody screwed up, okay, the next day, okay, you're gonna be my maid of honor, by the way. So
yep,
we're gonna work on this where you don't forget it.
Yeah, other people had to do it, huh?
Oh yeah, everybody had to do it.
It wasn't just me.
No. I wasn't just picking on Tim just because you're a little California boy and you're, pretty and everything, and come out with that nice little sinker and slider and stuff. And I said, why the hell can't you get over to first? What's the problem here?
Yeah.
I said, maybe we need to work on this and educate him.
So you were thinking because he's from California, he was a little laid back, and that's why he wasn't getting over there, huh?
Whatever, but he wasn't laid back in the big leagues. I can tell you that because he did have a nasty sinker and some slider kick to it, and he ran right through those ball clubs. Tim, what was your first year in the big leagues? I know you came to me in, I can't remember what year, it was like 92 or 3 or something.
I came to you in 90.
90. Oh, well, okay.
90, and I got to the big leagues in June of 93.
That's very good. That's quick. So.
And you threw a lot of innings that year for the Padres.
Do what?
No.
I
said you threw a lot of innings that year for the Padres coming up mid-season. You threw over 100 innings for them, so you were ready to go.
Yeah, we had it was a pretty unique situation. That's right when they did the fire sale and got rid of Sheffield and McGriff, and they decided to go ahead and rebuild. I mean, there was Tim Tuffle was in there. There's a bunch of guys, and they basically gave the Las Vegas Stars, which was the AAA team, they gave us a half season of on-the-job training. As long as we weren't embarrassing ourselves, we pitched. So, I mean, as long as you weren't giving up 3 and 4 runs, I mean, if you gave up a run or two, you went back out the next inning. Stuff like that would never be done nowadays, which, I mean, it's kind of a shame for some of these teams that are rebuilding because you're not going to win this year. So why not find out what these guys have, how they handle adversity, and, you know, and build the confidence in them. I came back for 94 and felt like I could pitch in the big leagues. So, it helps, but yeah, that's kind of what that was. How I got so many innings was, they let us pitch and try to figure it out, because you can give someone all the knowledge you want, but until they walk out there and try to figure out how, what they have and how it fits into the game, you know, that's kind of where it's at. What works for me at different times is different than what works for everybody else.
Very well put, Tim. Very well put, because development is key. And if you don't get the opportunity, and then if you don't show up between the lines, you know, just like Tim said, you know, you kind of just put on the sidelines a little bit. But I'm sorry, Mark, you had a question. What was that?
Yeah, I was going to say, when you got to the big leagues and you started facing the big league hitters, what did you notice, like, right off the bat was so different between those guys and the guys you were facing in AAA when you were in Las Vegas?
Mm-hmm.
They take a mistake that doesn't have to be a huge mistake. I mean, just a non-executed pitch, and early in the counts, so less than 2 strikes, they do damage. I mean, balls are hit hard and loud, and I mean, but that's what those guys have refined their hitting plan to where early on they're looking for a pitch to do damage with, and if you give it to them, it ain't good. And so that was the biggest thing and that's the progression through all the leagues. I mean, you know, at the beginning, no one's got a hitting plan in A-ball, and you know what, most pitchers don't have a pitching plan. I'm just trying to throw a strike. But as you go through the system and then you get to the big leagues being the final one, now you've refined this thing to hopefully you're figuring out who you are, what you're capable of. The hitter has figured out who he is and what he's capable of. And then, you know, really the battle is the first guy to make the mistake loses. I mean, you know, in that one situation, I don't mean the game, but at least in that at bat. I mean, if I happen to give a pitch to a guy in an area he's looking for it, they're doing damage. And so, you know, that last step is it's difficult, because as it starts to not go your way, your confidence goes quick because of the stage you're on. So that turns into the battle of, you know, for yourself is, am I good enough to be here and stay? And so, does that fall in line with, like, we always hear about this guy, he's got great stuff, but he's not successful? Is that what that translates to? Is it confidence, or is it location? Well, oh man, how long is this show?
It all goes together. So, you know, yeah. I will just hear it from Tim.
From my experience, from what I walked through, because I kind of have 2 halves to my career. The first half of my career was very inconsistent, up and down. That's why you see so many teams in the equation. I could throw a strike, but I did not know how to compete. And so there was some things that happened to me. The final straw was a release from Baltimore that kind of put me in a spot to – I didn't feel this way, but I was kind of backed into a corner. I felt like I didn't want to play anymore. I realized later I just didn't want to play the way I had been trying to play. So it kind of freed me up, and a lot of things took off from there, which was, obviously really nice to have happen. But to answer your question on that, I don't believe on these guys. I don't think they've been given the time to develop enough and to figure out who they are. I mean, what do I do? What do I do well? We are so caught up on velo right now. And, here's the sad thing. I don't care if it's 98 now. It's seen too many times, and the hitters can time it. If these guys can't locate this stuff, and, there goes your confidence. I mean, if you breeze through the minors at 98 when guys can't hit it, and now you're in the big leagues and you're throwing balls at 98 down the middle of the plate or grabbing too much plate, and these big league hitters are squaring it up, it's tough to have confidence. And so, but I coached with the Pods for 4 years too. This was a few years back, and they want to rush guys to the big leagues, and they're not ready. And then to fail on that stage, people don't realize this, but big league players get up in the morning and watch ESPN2 and watch yourself over and over and over not get it done. I mean, that doesn't help. So the confidence is a huge, aspect to that. But they put an emphasis, in my opinion, on some of the wrong stuff. And throwing hard's not just all where it's at. You got to be able to locate it, and you got to change speeds.
This is
seems to me like it's all about velo.
Do what?
It's all about velo now, which is true.
Yeah.
Everything. By the way, this is Mark and Mark on the Midday, and we're with Tim Worrell, and we're having a great time. And I'm going to ask you a question here. You've had so many managers, Tim. Who were some of your? Two or a couple of your best managers that you enjoyed? Who was the manager that you really liked? The team was chilling and everything was on. Yeah,
from that standpoint, I got to go with Dusty Baker.
Okay.
I got him at the right time of my career. I had just started turning the page on figuring out how to compete. Just a big a part of that managing wise as Dusty Baker was, the pitching coach was Dave Righetti.
Good one.
They were about the person and a relationship with them. And I mean, I don't know why, but Dusty Baker made me feel 10 feet tall on the mound. Now, I mean, I know that's it's a illusion, but I mean, he always made me feel like I was the guy that he needed at that moment to get the job done. And that's rare. I had other times in my career where, I just felt like I was just a guy down there that it was his turn to see whatever he could get done that day. Instead of really being needed, guys respond to that. And the other, who else would I throw in? Well, I had Boach for.
I was going to say you had a young Boach.
Yeah, I had him in A ball and Double A, and then had him for I think 3 of the 4 years in the big leagues. So he was, when I describe most guys will tell you, hey, player's manager. My definition of a player's manager is that doesn't mean he's just nice and a piece of cake all the time. I mean, if he needs to be in your face, he'll be in your face, but it's warranted and not out of line, and it's not degrading. It's just, hey, you need to make a change here, or you need to do this. So I would definitely put Boach in that category too. So those would probably be, it's hard to rate, these guys. I mean, they all bring something to the table that's different, and that's helped my career along its way.
Well, Boach was, I coached with him and got to know him in High Desert. I was his pitching coach, and he is a great guy, and he does relate well to people. And he has a way with words, and he has a way of saying things, and he gets it, and the players get him, and they fall into line. And that's the one thing that you can say is if they can relate on a personal basis and make you feel tall like Dusty Baker made you feel, and it's really important. Now, and I'm going to ask you about Todd. You have brother Todd, and where is Todd?
Never heard of that guy.
Todd's in St. Louis.
Okay.
And he's living in St. Louis, and he's got a little hunting lodge thing going in South Dakota, and we got a lake house together in Missouri, down on Table Rock, that we used for ourselves a couple weeks, and then we rented out the rest of the year too. So that's pretty much. He's got older boys; they're all out of college, and I'm kind of right in the middle of all that.
Well, Tim's got a little redneck. Now that's pretty good. Tim's turned into a redneck.
Did you feel any additional pressure getting to the bigs with your brother being an established star in the league before you got there, or it was just something that you were used to and you didn't deal with it at all, have to worry about it?
It had its. I'll just say this: the benefits far outweighed the crappier moments. That. Where you try to, because you do want to say, I don't want to be Todd's little brother. You want to try to separate yourself at times. So, but those times were, like I said, far and few between as to, I got looked at because I was Todd's brother. Randy Smith with the Padres drafted me not off of what, I was showing some signs, but he took a chance on, some genes, basically saying, hey, maybe. And he gave me a shot. I was a 20th round pick. I was nothing special. And so, but given the opportunity to develop and meet the requirements of each league to be able to pitch at that level, I was an older kid too. So as soon as I showed I could pitch at that level, they moved me. So my 2.5 years in the minors was, I was always making adjustments, it seemed like, for 2.5 years, because as soon as I showed in 3 months, if I showed I could pitch at a level, because of my age, they moved me. Because there's no point in giving me a whole season somewhere because my age, at first it works against you, but eventually it kind of worked for me, and they moved me right along.
Well, you bring up a good point, which is age. Let's fast forward to you're 35 years old, and you're pitching for the Giants in 2003, and you have a monster year out of the pen with 38 saves and a 2.87 ERA. Tell us a little bit about that year and how you got your opportunity.
Well, I got my opportunity because Rob Ning got hurt. He never threw a pitch again after the 2002 World Series, or at least in a big league game after the World Series in 2002. And so really I was just the first one to get the chance. I was probably the oldest guy. Well, I was the oldest guy in the pen. Felipe Alou was the manager, and I think it was more just like, hey, let's see. I think they were searching for who was going to do it, and I got the first opportunity, and
you never gave it up.
Having had what? Yeah, well, it's funny because if it would have happened to me, well, if that opportunity would have presented itself at the beginning of my career, like say 3 or 4 years in, I would have never been able to keep that job. I was I was trying too hard, putting too much pressure on myself, try to make perfect pitches all the time. That opportunity came to me at exactly the right time because I didn't feature. I had major league average stuff. There was nothing special. But when you put it with a guy who's willing to compete, you can do some pretty special things with average stuff. And so, I was able to keep it all year. I did blow 6 saves, but they were scattered throughout the whole year. I never really went in the tank for, 10 games where a 10-day span where you cost the team 3 or 4 games in a row. And so I was able to, he just kept giving me the ball. And that was a really so once I figured out how to compete, I never jogged into those games thinking like, oh my gosh, I only got a 1-run lead and it's the 3, 4, 5 hitter up. It was more like, wow, what an opportunity I got here. And when you trying to change that mental approach there to more of a positive, I had a blast. And I had a blast not just because it went well. Some of those games where it didn't go well, I still enjoyed what I was trying to accomplish on the mound. And it's really just a shift in not being so result oriented, because I can't control everything. Sometimes these hitters hit really, really good pitches out of the park, and you've got to lose and walk off. And so, but as a younger player, that's demoralizing, because then you sit there and go, wow, that was a great pitch, and he just hit it out. My stuff must not be good enough. And then you can see where that takes you. So
it spirals.
That's yeah, big time. And then what happens is, and everybody does it, then you start trying hard. And as soon as you start trying hard, you're not in the spot to maximize your full ability, because you're trying too hard. You grip the ball tighter, your mechanics get a little bit off, and now you can't be as consistent on the other end at the plate with the ball, and now the hitters are hitting you more. You're actually helping them. You're trying to stop it, but you're actually helping them whoop your butt. So
we always try to operate sometimes. Yeah. I know we always try to operate less is more sometimes, because, just to try to get us to calm down out there between the lines, and, try to take our mindset into a calming situation. And, so where we can do the job and don't grip the crap out of the baseball and, flutter it up there and they hit it 480 feet. But,
right.
You can tell.
Well, you just hit, Mark, you just said one thing that I think, when I was coaching in the minor leagues complex over here with the Padres, that to me is the pro approach. The amateur approach is more, because that's what you're taught. Get in the gym more, and all these things are good, but we're taught on the amateur side, do more, try harder, be better. And the pro approach, this is my own little crappy philosophy, but the pro approach to me is understand who you are and do less. And until you've been in the scenario, and do less doesn't mean I don't care. It just means I throw my best stuff when I'm relaxed and on time. But if I let this situation get to me, I can't be relaxed. I'm going to be nervous. I'm going to be uptight. I'm going to try too hard to make a perfect pitch. And the bummer with baseball is sometimes it works. It does. They hit balls at people. You still get by, but it just reinforces that negative approach. Instead of, hey, relax. Honestly, the things we preach in Little League are 100% true. I don't think anyone believes them. It's not whether you won or lost the game, it's how you played. And have some fun. Those two things got me through my last 6 years, and those were my best 6 years. So we say these things, but we don't necessarily reinforce them to our kids.
I've always felt the guy that relaxes more wins the battle. I'm always going to try to relax more than the hitter. Let me see. If I want to throw a pretty good fastball, I have to relax a little bit more, because if you get tense out there, it's not going to have the same zip, the same hop. It's not going to sink maybe like you want it to. You're not going to take command of the zone. And the touch feel scenario, the kinesthetic awareness is such a big deal. That you've got to learn how to relax and take that between the lines. And, you brought up the Little League thing, which is, the Little League thing to me is anywhere from, 10, I'm going to call it a Little League thing, anywhere from 10 to 18. So that's what we're dealing with until they go out to college or wherever else they could. And you lose most of your players at around age 14 or 15 because they don't make that freshman team, and then they go to the chess club. So, but anyway, what you got is...
Are you picking on me?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mom. But anyway, you've got your parents.
It's a Sandlot.
Oh, yes, I know. And of course, so you've got your parents that kind of overdo it and butt in, and And I've had amateur teams for 10 years now, and Tim had to deal with Austin going through the amateur status, and I'm sure Tim's just watching the parrot, and I know how Tim is. He's got his arms crossed over there watching the game. And he's got big ears, and he's just listening and saying, "Are you kidding me? You gotta be." Well, you can take my term for my book. Are you shitting me? A common baseball term. And so that's
we
what
gotta beat that. Is this a cable show?
You can go anything you want.
Yep, we can say anything we want.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's true. And you know what's funny? I mean, you bring up Austin, but he went to college as a pitcher, and I kept him off the bump as long as possible. And that was wear and tear and injury stuff. But I figured he would be a pitcher. I mean, if you watch him throw, it's like, okay, he's a pitcher. But you know what? I told him
he's tall as you. He's taller than you.
Yeah. Yeah, we're staring eye to eye. It's a little frustrating thing. I'll admit, my ego gets a little hurt every now and then when, he thinks he can take me, and I'm wondering maybe he can. So, that stuff. But, yeah, I mean, it's just, I guess really what we're talking about is perspective on really what's at stake here. And in 8 to 18, what's at stake? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nothing.
Zero.
And so, nothing that's, I've said this to some minor league pitchers. There are times when I've towed that rubber and thrown the baseball with so much pressure on myself, and I hate to use this analogy, but like someone's in the front row, got my mom with a gun to her head, and if I don't execute, she's done. And I sit back once I started realizing that, and I'm like, why would I be dealing with that kind of pressure in a game? I want good things to happen, but in the big scheme of things, big deal if it doesn't. I mean, this is not life-changing stuff. I mean, yeah, there's a I don't want to say a fine line, but man, when you can relax, once I relaxed, everything came my way. I had tried for 6 years to get a multi-year deal, and within 4 months of not caring anymore, the Cubs gave me a multi-year deal. And so I'm sitting back just like going, what the heck?
Was that faith or God in the works at that point?
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
It was just weird the way, and some of my results on the positive side happened so quick, I had no choice but to buy in. I mean, because I was sitting back going, what the heck? You're throwing 91 on down with a slurve, from a big league side. Some of these guys got some really nasty stuff, and I wouldn't put any of my pitches in that category. Maybe command was my number one thing with all my pitches, but when you sit back, I'll just say this. If approach was taught more, I'm a firm believer that a guy with my ability doesn't get 14 years in the big leagues. I might get there and get some time in, but that's how big I feel approach is and how we go about our business, not so much what we feature.
Did you feel the pressure came more from internally, like you were putting it on yourself, or did it come externally from the managers or from the front office, or even the prognosticators between talk radio and all these TV sports channels out there? I mean, everyone's dissecting everything. Where did the pressure come from most, or was it a combo?
Well, I think it's a combo of all of that. Now, I will say this: I had it a lot easier than they do nowadays because only ESPN was the only 24-hour sports network really to speak of at that time. All that stuff was just starting to take off. But I would definitely say it's because I can't remember anyone in particular walking up to me saying, "Hey, you got to this, and get this done, and you need to have this ERA." But that's just starts to what gets understood, because I'm not going to lie to you, results get rewarded. If you have a 2.5 ERA, if you have a 2.5 ERA, you're going to have a job next year.
Yeah.
But the trick is, how do you walk out to the mound and not pitch to have a 2.5 ERA? Because if you do, you will have a 5.5 ERA. And that's just the way it works. So, results do matter. That's the fine line trying to teach young kids, minor league young kids. They do matter. But, you know, the old school way of saying it was don't look at your stats till the end of the season because they won't change anymore after that. And there's a lot of truth to that. Just stay in the moment and pitch and see what happens. The other thing along the lines when you do that is you start enjoying what you're doing. And once you start enjoying it, you get consistent is what I'll say. That's what happened in the last half of my career. I got consistent. I didn't get great. I got consistent. I had some great moments and a couple years of some good results, but overall I just got consistent. And as soon as I got consistent, managers wanted to put me in situations that doesn't make sense. Do you really want a guy with 90 miles an hour closing your game out? You know, odds are most people, but most people would say no. And I would, I don't want to say I agree with that, but when you find a guy that's been through it and figures out how to compete, that's the guy I want. I don't care what he features. I want the guy who knows how to compete because that means he'll give me his best at every moment, no matter what the situation is. And it's not that the other guys aren't trying to; they're trying too hard.
The one thing that I've noticed on myself, and I know Tim has too, but Mark asked the question right there about, you know, you're talking about general manager and press and managers and coaches. To me, they never bothered me. Who really bothered myself was if I could stand up to my own players, and if I was the guy right there to say, "Hey, we want you on the hill. We're backing you." You know, that's
right.
Where you got the response was basically, you know, from your own teammates. You know, and right. You liked it when you got out of the inning and then somebody say, "Nice job." You know, that's a big deal because you have very few managers in professional baseball pat you on the back. They don't hug you and say, "Hey, great job, you know, we're wonderful, you know, but we've only got 159 games left, you know, tomorrow." So, you know,
right.
Shit like that. So, but I'm just saying, it's funny. I always, my barometer was I did not want to let my teammates down, you know, and
yep.
that was what, and you're the same way, Tim, because I know how you are, and you know that
I think some of that's changed nowadays too with. Mark, when you came up, how many moves were done that off season before to change that team around? What, maybe 3 or 4? Mm-hmm. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of. Now teams have 13 to 15 guys move and change, and how do you get any consistency when we're running? I mean, there is no room in the game now just to have an off year. Because if you have an off year, you're moved. You're trying to be replaced. You're this, and no one's to have any longevity to your career. No one's going to be good every single year. But
absolutely right.
But yeah, no, I agree. When you learn to compete, it is all about everybody else, and it's not about you. I mean, it really does. I mean, that's a great way to put it. And you want to do it for them. And so, because it's, you know what, it's easier to play for it's easier to play for your teammates than it is to play for yourself.
That's a great way to put it, Tim.
Tim, how excited are you to have your son Austin play for this guy come the summer?
Oh yeah, no.
I'm a loose cannon.
He started me off on the right foot. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he understands what's important and what's not. I mean, we're sitting here talking for the last 15 minutes on perspective, and Mark has a good perspective on what's important, and he also understands, since these guys are on the amateur side, development is the number one thing. So, I mean, I'm excited because I know he'll put the right spin for Austin. So my son got redshirted this year, so he's chomping at the bit to get out and compete. He hasn't competed since his high school senior year. So, but, you know, now that could backfire on him because he could be overly anxious and get out of whack. But knowing Mark and what he showed me, how to get my foot in the door and get off on a good start, I'm excited. Plus, he's still got a lot of that hard-nosed, old-school mentality where if you don't cover first, guess what? We're going to cover first till you remember. And
the bad thing about that is it's 112 to 115 when we play out in the Arizona Collegiate League. So,
no kidding.
we have an ambulance, ready for everybody out there. But so, hey, Tim, Mark and I've enjoyed the visit with you thoroughly. You have given so much insight to us and the fans that are going to listen to this, and anybody. Just words of wisdom from Tim. But Tim, thanks for coming on today, and I'm going to see you back in Arizona probably at the end of the week here. Anyway, I'm out in Winsville right now, and looking at all these.
Hey, Mark,
I can actually take a squirrel shot right now, actually.
Hey, Mark, can I say one thing before we go? Yep. I hope that some of the execs for Major League Baseball are like listening to this and get someone like Tim in the game working with the younger players, because it is all about perspective, and you've got a level set way of thinking about things that I think these young players who are getting rushed so fast really need before they get to the majors and become flops, because that's such a waste of talent and time. I really hope you can get into the game. I hope that happens for you down the road.
Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll just say this, the perspective, I mean, obviously it came with experience and age. I wish it would have been, I don't want to say taught, but I wish it would have been more of an emphasis earlier in my career. But it wasn't, but that's what made it stick so hard and gives me a passion for trying to communicate, that to anyone who wants to listen. I don't know. I'm not, obviously right now my kids have to listen to it, but other than that,
you certainly had words of wisdom today, Tim. Certainly had words of wisdom today.
You want to close it out, country?
Well, sure, I'm going to close this thing out. You know what? No peas at the knees, no pies in the eyes, no wall balls, and you'll be just fine. Thanks for having Tim on here. Appreciate it very much, Tim. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Yep, thanks for having me, guys.
Okay. Tim?
Yep.
Hey, Tim? Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. That was fun. That was really good.
Yeah, no, I enjoy talking it, and that's the one thing.